Hi, my name is Arthur, and this is Broken Australia. If you are about to walk into a dealership this weekend, or you just drove a brand new car off the lot in the last 2 years, I need you to stop what you are doing and watch this first. Because the car sitting in your driveway right now, the one you are still paying off, the one you chose because of the touchscreen and the fuel economy sticker, was engineered to fail at a very specific mileage. And the people who built it knew exactly when that would happen before they ever put it in production. The illusion of choice on Australian forecourts. I want to start by telling you something that took me an embarrassing amount of time to figure out. I spent 3 hours one afternoon going down a rabbit hole comparing new car models available in Australia, genuinely trying to find the best value option across different brands. I had tabs open everywhere. Comparison sites, forum threads, YouTube reviews. My wife walked past the home office, looked at my screen and said, "Are you buying a car or solving a murder?" And honestly, by the end of it, I felt like both. Here is what I found that nobody in the marketing material tells you. When you walk into an Australian car dealership today, you think you are standing inside a competitive marketplace. You see Toyota and Mazda and Hyundai and Kia and Mitsubishi and Ford and Volkswagen. You see completely different badges, different showrooms, different salespeople with different free pens. You assume these are fundamentally different products competing to earn your dollar. That is the illusion they are selling you before you even look at a single car. The reality is platform consolidation. It is the single most important concept in modern automotive manufacturing, and almost no mainstream car reviewer in Australia explains it properly. Platform consolidation means that multiple vehicles sold under completely different brand names and priced at completely different points are built on the exact same underbody, the same suspension geometry, the same engine family, and the same electronically controlled transmission architecture. A Volkswagen Tiguan and a Skoda Karoq share the same platform. A Kia Sportage and a Hyundai Tucson are the same vehicle below the belt line. A Toyota RAV4 and a Lexus NX are built on the same bones and sold to you at a $40,000 price gap, like they are different products from different engineering philosophies. The badge is a marketing decision. The engineering underneath it is a cost-sharing arrangement between corporate accountants who have never sat in your commute. And here is the part that matters for every single person watching this in Australia. When that shared platform has a defect, which it will, every vehicle built on it carries that defect. The badge on your bonnet is irrelevant. You bought the platform. The defect came with it. The nameplate is just decoration on top of a problem you have not discovered yet. How Australian buyers got specifically stitched up. This is the part I think is most underrated in the story. Stay with me here, because this is specific to us. This is not just an American problem or a European problem. Australian buyers get a version that is measurably worse, and most people have no idea why. Let me explain the mechanism. Australia is a right-hand drive market. We are geographically isolated, we have a relatively small population by global automotive standards, and we represent a fraction of the total units any major manufacturer produces in a given year. That combination of factors puts us at the very end of the product development and specification queue. Here is what that means in practice. When a manufacturer develops a new platform, they engineer it first for their highest volume markets, Europe, North America, and China. Those markets get the full specification range, multiple engine options, the choice between naturally aspirated and turbocharged, higher grade interior materials, the full suite of available safety and comfort configurations. By the time that platform reaches the Australian market, the manufacturer has already made their margin calculation. They send us the variants that cost the least to configure for right-hand drive conversion while hitting the price points that clear the market here. We get fewer engine choices, We frequently get the turbocharged direct injection variant as the only option because it hits the fuel economy numbers on the window sticker while costing less to manufacture at volume. I went down such a deep rabbit hole on this that my wife had to physically take my laptop away from me at midnight. What I found was a consistent pattern across almost every mainstream platform sold in Australia between 2015 and 2024. We are not buying the full product. We are buying the trimmed-down, cost-optimized version of a product that was already cost-optimized for the primary market. And we are paying full retail for the privilege. The factory floor secret. Quick question before I get into this next part. Drop a comment right now. Have you ever had a brand new car, still inside its warranty period, go back to the dealer with a fault that the service team told you was normal? I am betting most of you will say yes. And that answer is not a coincidence. I'll be honest. When I first came across the concept of throughput rate manufacturing, I was convinced it could not possibly be true. I had to go verify it myself. I spent an afternoon reading production line management studies and technician testimony from multiple markets. The more I read, the more uncomfortable I got. Because this is not an accident. This is a system. Here is how it works. In the era when Australian families bought Holdens and Falcons that ran for 20 years, assembly line workers were paid by the hour. Quality control inspectors walked the line. Their entire job was to stop defective vehicles from leaving the plant. That model was slower. It cost more per unit. It produced fewer defects per 1,000 vehicles. Today, every decision on a modern automotive production floor is governed by one metric: units per shift. The plant manager's performance review is built around it. The line supervisor's bonus is tied to it. If the line stops, money stops. If a worker identifies a fault and pulls the stop cord, the entire downstream assembly sequence is disrupted and the shift quota takes a hit. This creates a system where flagging a problem is a career risk. Ignoring it is the path of least resistance. This is not sloppy workmanship. This is the business plan. And technicians find the results every single day. Suspension components torqued to the wrong specification, coolant lines routed against sharp chassis edges that vibrate against them over 3 years. Electrical harnesses bundled with the wrong gauge wire for the load they are carrying. These faults are timed to fail at a very precise interval, specifically 18 months after the powertrain warranty expires. The engine that is destroying modern cars. Honestly, this is the detail that made me fall in love with this story in the first place. Because it is so specific, so documented, and so completely ignored by the automotive media that covers this industry in Australia. Once you understand it, you cannot unsee it every time you look at a new car specification sheet. The most dangerous engineering decision in the modern vehicle sold in Australia is the near universal adoption of the turbocharged direct injection engine as the default powertrain. On paper, these engines are extraordinary. Small displacement, high output, fuel economy numbers on the window sticker that look genuinely impressive. Manufacturers market them on exactly those numbers. The salesperson at the dealership points to the fuel economy figure and calls it efficient. The car reviewer calls it punchy. The window sticker calls it the future. What nobody tells you is what happens at 40,000 kilometers. Direct injection means fuel is sprayed directly into the combustion chamber rather than into the intake port. In the older port injection design, fuel washing over the intake valve kept it clean as a natural byproduct of how the system operated. In a direct injection engine, nothing washes the valve. Carbon deposits accumulate on the back of the intake valve with every combustion cycle. After 40,000 to 60,000 kilometers, that buildup is thick enough to restrict airflow, cause misfires, reduce power, and trigger oil consumption that the engineers documented in their own internal pre-production testing. The service to clean those valves is called walnut blasting. It costs between $500 and $900 in Australia, depending on the engine configuration. It is not covered under warranty because carbon buildup is classified as a maintenance item, not a manufacturing defect. The manufacturer knew this would happen before the engine went into production. They sold you the fuel economy numbers that the engine achieves before the carbon buildup begins. They said nothing about what it costs to maintain those numbers once it arrives. And in Australia, where we frequently have no naturally aspirated alternative offered on the same platform, you had no choice but to buy the direct injection variant anyway. Now add a turbocharger, which, in virtually every mainstream model sold in Australia since 2018, is exactly what you have got. Turbochargers operate at temperatures that cook the oil sitting inside the oil feed lines every single time you shut the engine off. This is called heat soak. It breaks down the oil into carbon deposits that accumulate inside the turbocharger housing with every heat cycle. After 5 to 7 years of normal Australian driving, the turbocharger bearing fails. Replacement in Australia runs between $1,500 and $3,500 depending on the vehicle. There is no warranty coverage because the failure occurs well past the powertrain coverage window and is classified as a wear item by the same legal team that wrote the warranty in the first place. This is one of those things I find myself randomly thinking about at 2 in the morning. Your $35,000 to $55,000 vehicle has 2 completely documented failure points, both of which the manufacturer identified before production, both of which fall outside warranty coverage by design. This is not bad luck. This is engineering to a financial outcome. The warranty is a trap. I want to tell you something I have never told anyone publicly. When I bought my last car, I paid extra for the extended warranty. I remember sitting across from the finance manager feeling genuinely smart about it, like I had cracked the code, like I was the one person in the dealership who had thought ahead. I remember driving home thinking I was protected. I was not protected. I was just the guy who paid extra for a document designed by attorneys whose entire job was to minimize what the company ever has to pay out. Here is the architecture of the modern Australian new car warranty and why it is constructed specifically to fail you. The manufacturer's legal team spends months, sometimes years, constructing an exclusion list around the exact failure modes their engineering team identified in pre-production testing. Carbon buildup on intake valves is excluded as a maintenance item. Turbocharger bearing failure due to heat soak is excluded as wear. Transmission shudder caused by a documented software calibration defect is covered only if you can prove the dealer performed a specific software reflash within a specific service window that was never communicated to you in any notice you actually received. Every single exclusion in that document corresponds to a failure mode someone in the engineering department already knew about. The warranty was not written to protect your investment. It was written as a legal architecture around the weaknesses in the product. And when your car is sitting at the dealer waiting for a back-ordered part, which is happening to Australians right now across every major brand, you are still making the monthly finance payment on a vehicle you cannot drive. The dealer tells you 6 to 8 weeks. That was 4 months ago. The 3 brands Australians keep buying that they absolutely should not. I want to be clear about something before I name names. I am not doing this to be inflammatory. I have printed out more research on this topic than I care to admit. My desk looked like a crime scene investigation board by the end of it. These are not opinions pulled out of thin air. These are patterns that show up consistently in Australian service data, independent technician reporting, and consumer advocacy records. Starting with Volkswagen Group products in Australia. This includes Volkswagen, Audi, Skoda, and Seat. The dual-clutch DSG transmission fitted across almost every Volkswagen Group vehicle sold here has a documented history of shudder, hesitation, and premature wear in Australian conditions. Australians' stop-start urban driving is particularly brutal on the dry-clutch DSG design. Volkswagen Australia has issued multiple technical service bulletins about this issue. The fix involves software updates, mechatronic unit replacement, or full clutch pack replacement. none of which the standard warranty covers once you hit the exclusion clauses around driving conditions and maintenance intervals. Replacement costs range from $2,000 to $6,000, depending on severity. DSG and replacement are recurring problems. Next, every turbocharged Ford Ranger and Everest from 2019 onwards. I know this is going to upset some people because Australians love the Ranger. It is the best-selling vehicle in this country. But the 2-litre bi-turbo diesel fitted to the current generation has a documented exhaust gas recirculation cooler failure pattern that Ford Australia is aware of, a diesel particulate filter system that requires highway driving to regenerate properly, which is a problem in Australian urban and regional mixed-use conditions, and an AdBlue system that adds a consumable cost and a failure point that did not exist on the previous generation engine. The previous 3.2-litre, 5-cylinder TDCi was slower, less impressive on paper, and in practice, far more durable. Ford replaced it anyway because the new engine hit better fuel numbers on the combined cycle test. Ranger remains a focal concern. And third, every current generation Mitsubishi sold in Australia. Mitsubishi's investment in engineering development for its Australian lineup has been declining for a decade. The Eclipse Cross and Outlander U's carried over platform architecture that is now legitimately old, covered in a fresh body with enough technology features to distract you from the fact that the bones underneath were not designed to meet the demands of the current powertrain outputs. Resale data bears this out. Depreciation curves on current Mitsubishi product in Australia are some of the steepest in the mainstream segment. What you should actually buy instead. Alright, this is the part I have been sitting on for months because I wanted to make sure I got every detail right before sharing it with you. I thought about how to present this clearly when I started putting the video together, and the simplest way is 3 tiers. Each one is genuinely available to an Australian buyer right now. Number 3. Any current generation Japanese vehicle in a naturally aspirated configuration, specifically Toyota and Honda, where the option still exists. This is getting harder to find, and that is deliberate on the part of the manufacturers. If the model you are considering is available without forced induction, buy that version. Pay the fuel economy penalty. The naturally aspirated Toyota 2.5-litre 4-cylinder fitted to the Camry is the same basic architecture that has been running without drama for 15 years. The carbon buildup problem still exists with direct injection, but it is manageable. The turbocharger failure point does not exist. You are buying the less impressive version on paper and the more reliable version in practice every single time. Number 2. Pre-2018 domestic Australian market vehicles from the last era of wide-scale port injection engines. The Holden Colorado with the naturally aspirated petrol 4-cylinder. The Toyota Hilux SR5 with the 4-litre V6 from before the turbo diesel became the only option offered. The Mazda CX-5 with the naturally aspirated Skyactiv petrol from 2012 to 2017. These are the last generation of vehicles sold new in Australia that were designed to run 200,000 kilometres without a major unplanned intervention. They are not impressive by modern standards. They will not win a specification comparison. The bones were built when bones were still built properly. Number 1. And this is the one I love. Every time I tell this story, I get excited. And I have told it probably 100 times now to anyone who would listen at a barbecue. The Japanese domestic market import. Japan has a vehicle inspection system called the Shaken. It is a government roadworthiness inspection program so rigorous and so expensive as vehicles age that many Japanese owners sell their cars with genuinely low mileage simply because they cannot economically justify the inspection cost once the vehicle reaches a certain age. These vehicles enter the Australian import market through the Personal Import Scheme and the 25-year rule under the Road Vehicle Standards Act. Right now, in 2025, vehicles manufactured in 2000 are fully eligible for import. What does that mean in practice? A 2000 model year Toyota Land Cruiser 100 series with the 4.2-litre inline-6 diesel engine, a drivetrain architecture rated for commercial truck service, and genuinely engineered for 500,000 kilometres between major overhauls, can be sourced and imported to Australia for between $25,000 and $45,000, depending on specification and mileage. That same vehicle in the current generation Australian showroom costs over $90,000, runs a twin turbocharged V6 petrol engine requiring premium fuel, and shares a platform with a Lexus LX that carries every single failure point we have discussed in this video. You are not buying an old car, you are buying a machine that is already fully depreciated, was maintained to a government inspection standard that does not exist in Australia, and carries a drivetrain so catastrophically overbuilt for its application that 25 years of use barely registers on the wear curve. I actually visited a Japanese import yard in Brisbane last year just to see what was available. I walked in expecting to find tired, neglected vehicles. What I found were Land Cruisers with 40,000 original kilometres, Nissan Patrols with service books you could follow entry by entry, and Toyota Hilux Surf models in conditions that made the new cars across the street look cheap by comparison. I stood in that yard for 2 hours. I drove home in my modern turbocharged crossover and thought about it the whole way. The one rule that changes everything. I want to leave you with the same rule that experienced independent automotive technicians in Australia use when someone asks them what to buy. Not what car journalists recommend, not what the manufacturer's fleet pricing tells fleets to buy, what the people who actually fix broken cars tell people who ask them honestly. Check the injection system. Check the forced induction. If the engine in the car you are looking at uses direct injection and a turbocharger as its primary configuration, and no naturally aspirated alternative is offered on that platform in Australia, you are not buying a vehicle. You are buying a subscription to the manufacturer's service department. You are buying a product with 2 documented failure points that fall outside warranty coverage by design, built on a factory floor where the metric that governs every decision is units per shift, not defects per thousand, sold to you with a warranty that was constructed specifically around the things most likely to go wrong. The badge on the grille is a marketing decision. The engineering underneath it is what you are actually buying. Spending $45,000 on a well-sourced Japanese domestic market import with a naturally aspirated diesel and a service history you can actually read beats spending $65,000 on a turbocharged platform with 2 known failure modes and a warranty that excludes both of them. The maths is not complicated once you see it. Here is the bottom line. The era of the honest Australian family car is over. The manufacturers who sell into this market are banking on you being distracted by the ambient lighting, the wireless phone charging pad, and the 0 to 100 times so you never look at the injection system specification in the fine print. They are counting on you not knowing the difference between a fuel economy number on a window sticker and a real-world ownership cost across 10 years of Australian driving. Do not let them convert your transport budget into a decade-long subscription to their service department. Check the injection, check the forced induction, and never underestimate the value of an engine that was overbuilt for its application in the year 2000 and has been quietly proving it ever since. If this saved you from making a very expensive mistake, subscribe to Broken Australia. Next week, I am covering the builder-grade problem in Australian new home construction. The plumbing behind your walls, the ducting in your roof, and the slab joint under your feet. Same system, same incentives, same outcome. And in some ways, it is worse. Because at least when a car breaks, you can pull over.